Just loved what they'd got.
Saying that my dad was a Clarence Dunworth, and he was doorman at Swalwell Social Club for a lot of years. And I always remember when we were 18, he always made with members of Swalwell Social Club, and we weren't allowed to go in until we were 18. But me being sort of, sort of tested our boundaries really, and myself and two of my friends decided this day wanted to go and visit the club and go in, but I thought, well, I can't because my dad's on the door. How do I get past him? So my two friends says, we'll do something about it. We'll get you dressed up, put the wig on, you'll never know. So we spent all day, the wig on, the makeup, transformation, everything, all day. I was ill with nerves. Goes down to the club that night, goes in, myself included, my two friends, my dad. Hello there. Hello, Mr. Dunworth. Hello, have you not seen our Winifred today? No, Mr. Dunworth. And I'm standing there next to these two girls that I knew very well, shaking. Oh, well, that's unusual, because Winifred said she was coming up to see you. Still nothing said. Signed in, goes upstairs in the old club, gets my first drink. I remember getting half a sip out the lager. Me sitting with my wig on, my makeup. Nobody knew who I was apart from me underneath this transformation. I took one sip of the lager and I thought, can't do this. I think I had to leave that at that stage, because I knew what the outcome would if my dad had found out that I was in the club underage. So that was one of the memories that I've got of Swalwell Club, and my dad being on the door. But I remember serving behind the bar in the actual lounge at the time, and there was an incident I always remember with Alma. We're only allowed to put one cherry in the little short glasses. I always remember that one. And Alma always liked 2 or 3. And this day I only had put one in, and I always remember Alma not being very happy. And the next minute I knew it was on the agenda for the committee. It was taken upstairs on a Sunday morning. The committee just more or less said that you should just put one cherry in the short that they had, you see. But Alma liked more than one cherry. Alma took it upstairs and said that, I should have been allowed to put more cherries in. Right. Sort of got her hands rattled.
But the highlight of the year was the club trip, when the whole village would empty when it was a church trip or the club trip. And before I used to say there was as many as 12 to 14 carriages full of mothers and children on the way to the seaside for the day. But that was our highlight once a year, when the train would leave this wonderful station and take us all to the seaside.
The last club trip I remember was when we went to Whitley Bay on a train from Swalwell. It was actually the last train passenger train that was ever used at Swalwell station. At club trip time, this village used to empty. Everyone's parents were members of the club, and the club trip day was the biggest day of the year for most kids. We never got out of this village. We didn't have the money to get out of the village or go anywhere. Everything we did revolved around this village, which was the centre of our world. But the club trip day was when we went to the coast, organised by Swalwell Club. We would go down there for the whole day, and as I said earlier, we went on the train. Later, we went on double-decker buses, and they used to actually congregate along here, and people would come here and get on the buses to go down to Whitley Bay, Cullercoats, Tynemouth, and generally you'd have maybe 700 to 1,000 people on that trip. And the nice thing about it was everybody had new clothes. They got new T-shirts, they got new shorts, they got new pumps, sand shoes as we called them. And if you didn't get new ones, of course, they were always painted white with a special kind of, not polish, but a coating which you could get, which you put onto your white sand shoes to make them all white again. And everybody was nicely washed. Everybody had a shower or a bath the night before or that morning, and we'd all congregate here in our finery, and off we'd go to the club trip. And we would come back much later in the evening, and everybody had a fantastic time. We'd bring back the candy rock, of course, which was what people did then, and the little souvenirs from Tynemouth or Cullercoats, and everybody had a fantastic time. It was just that one of the highlights of the year, the club trip.
I can remember the club going to the club trip one year, and at the station the train came in. You used to either get the first train or the second train, and the whole family used to go, you know, aunties, uncles, everybody. It was great. And then of course after the railway closed, there was the buses, and the village was deserted that day. Just nobody there. Everybody went to the club trip.
By Swalwell Club, then when they run the South Shields or Whitley Bay, they always done it by train, and there was generally 2 trains when Swalwell Club had that trip. And you went to the club and you got your tickets free. And then when they got on the train, was just you handed your ticket in to get on the. Then, you know, Johnny went to Whitley Bay, Cullercoats, South Shield, North Shield.
But I remember we once went, and my mum and my sister and then were walking down Wickham Bank, and Matt, my brother, he was treasurer for Swalwell Club, and he came up to it. He says, "Will you give us your tickets?" He says, "Somebody from Bladen, this is members of the clubs, turned up and wants to go." He says, "I've told them just to jump on the train, but they're not." He says, "I haven't got no more tickets." But it doesn't really matter. So we had to give him her tickets, and we had to go through without tickets. But it was a big event, and you get right from there until they stopped the trains.
Well, I can remember my father telling us the tale years ago that when he was a young fella, my dad was known as John Peel, and his friend Rob Davy was later known as the local fishman. Anyway, there was somebody drowned in the river, and he was put in the morgue that was beside the town gate. Anyway, boys being boys, they were trying to look in the window and see this body and that. And the local policeman come along. I think he was known as Barber, the policeman. And he caught them, like looking in the window. And he opened the door and put them in for a few minutes. But my dad said it was like hours that they were really, you know, scratching at the door to be let out. That was the tale of that. But he really got a shock, the two of them. Never went near there again for a long time. Like on a Sunday night, I remember we lived in Hood Street, which faced the monument and the town gate. And I can remember all the men with their collars and ties and caps on, waiting for the pubs to open at 7 o'clock. And they used to sit on the seats that were there. And I used to always think Sunday night was a special night, and they used to get dressed up in that used to be a good memory. Yeah. Fridays, I remember my nana scrubbing the steps at the back and at the front and putting the whitening on the steps and on the windowsills. Friday was a busy day, you know, getting ready for the weekend.
I was about 10 when the war started, maybe a bit younger, and then you had to go all over to try to get shopping. So my mum used to go to town and stand in queues for bread and this, that and the other. And me as a kid, I might have been a bit younger, used to take me there and we used to stand. And I used to love to stand in the queues. Now I can't be bothered to stand there. But I used to love it. So we used to go to Newcastle and it used to cost 7pence return from the monument, where the monument used to be, into town and back. And now it's about £2 to get from the same place. My mum had been a good housekeeper and she used to get the same groceries every week before the war. So when the war started, my mum had taken like sugar boxes this big. So that wasn't a worry because you had sugar to last for years. But it was the butter. Tea, you had to go very careful with tea because tea was hard. Everything was hard, but if you went to town and you stood in queues, they weren't ration shops. You know, there was fruiters where you could get fruit, but you maybe have to stand for hours. For nylon stockings at a shop called Eaton's in town, you used to have to stand there for hours. But you would get some at the end of the day. I mean, you know, if you went to town about 7 o'clock and stood till it opened. And it was all, it was hard. We often got the sirens, like, I think it was the planes going back. They must have come over this way to go back, I don't know. And are coming in. And the sirens used to go and my dad used to have you all up. And you all had to go in the shelter. And my mother would never go in the shelter. She would get up and she would sit at the fireplace and he would say, "Are you coming?" "No, if I have to die, I'll die sitting here instead of sitting in the shelter."
And I got called up for the army when I was 21 and I was in the army 5 years. But I had good friends in the army, yeah. But like everything else, you write to each other when you're demobbed, then it fades away. I was stationed at Plymouth. Well, you know, Plymouth was devastated. It was the first place I saw, and there was a beautiful church there. It was hit by an oil bomb, St Andrews. And we used to stand there for the bus. Now, we only had 2 buses a day to where I was. At first I was in Saltash, and then we went to Down Thomas. And from Down Thomas you only had 2 buses a day. So you had to make sure you were, and you had about a mile to walk to get the bus to the village, you know. And then you had to make sure you were back on that bus at night as you were being on a charge for being late. I was on a predictor. It used to tell you how far the planes were away. And it used to look through these, and you could see, you know. And then there was a height finder who told you the height that stood at the other side. And they used to could tell the height of the planes when they would come to bomb. Yeah. Oh, you had the big guns around you know. Yeah. And they were horrible when they went off, our guns. And about 2 fields away from where we were, there was these, with the tracer bullets, I don't know whether you've ever heard it now, it used to go over your head in masses. Oh, they were horrible, horrible. And then they bombed Devonport, you know, was the port. Bernardo's. And they had a big house, and that had a direct hit, and all the children were killed. Our men were away for 3 weeks, just digging, and there were a lot of the men they were Geordies, and they were devastated, you know, devastated. Now I came out and I got a job at Delarue's, a money factory, and I was there 35 years. You know, your life, when you think back, that's your whole life, really, you know.
Oh, well, I worked at Vickers during the war. In fact, when I was 14, I left school. I went to a place on trading estate called Wyman's. And I was there just over a year, I think. And we were suspended because the work wasn't coming in. I worked on what you call the Fleet Air Arms oilskins. And then I went from there to the soap works at Dunstan. You would remember that. And then from soap works, I got word from Vickers Armstrong's, because I had my name down for quite some time, to serve me time as a lady tracer. So I went to Vickers Armstrong's and served my time at Ladies Trace as a Lady Tracer.
When the 1937 coronation, we used to dress my sister made me a dress in red, white and blue in paper, and we used to go down to the school and march from the school right around all these streets and down to the school field, which was just over by there, and we used to go to the school field and then have recess and fun on. We had a very happy childhood. And then when it was voting day, we used to go around. We used to start from the Ebenezer Chapel, and we used to walk around the streets singing, vote, vote, vote for Mr. Whiteley. Whiteley's sure to win the war, 'cause we'll buy a penny gun and we'll make the Germans run, and we'll vote, vote, vote for Mr. Whiteley, and go right round the streets saying things like that, you know.
And he says, right, the job's yours. So I started as a line tape operator. In the olden days, the centre used to displace about 20 compositors who used to set it by hand. Mind you, wouldn't be able to find a line tape operator nowadays. It's all different again, you know. We used to do an awful lot of work for the Ministry of Pensions at Longbenton, because we used to print several different magazines for them, about 6 parish magazines. St Nicholas at Dunstan, there was one called Impact, and that was about 5 or 6 churches. Blaine St Cuthbert was one of them, you know, a combined one, yeah. And we used to get a stack of work from Wickham Council when it was separate, you know.
Fletcher's. I remember going outside Fletcher's and asking if they had scraps when I was little, scraps of paper, and he used to get big bundles of long, you know, scraps of paper, and he would spend many an hour just writing on them and making streamers and doing all sorts, but you always got a good bundle of scraps from Fletcher's, yeah.
I can remember Railway Street, which is not there now, and I can remember what they called Paper Mill Road and the chain factory. I can remember that. I can remember the horses pulling, shire horses, pulling the railway wagons out. Do you know the bottom of Wickham Bank? Right at the bottom, across the road. There used to be the chain factory and the forge down there. And I can remember there's a laddie with the horses pulling the railway wagons out behind Swalwell Station so they could get them off the main line. The engines used to come to them. They were massive horses. They used to put 2 on. Used to pull just one wagon out, you know, and just see for, just out onto the sidings, you know. Just remember that.
Playing